Hello besties, welcome back to my channel. I unintentionally took a break from booktube. I have no idea why. Actually I do, summer was absolutely insane, but I have more time now. I'm getting back into my little routine that I know and love, so I wanted to start filming some book content again. Even though I was busy this entire summer, I have still been reading. I have been reading a lot actually. I've already hit my Goodreads goal for the year, and instead of catching you guys up on everything you missed, I'm just going to hop back into booktube by giving you guys my August reading wrap up. Yes, that's a little silly, and if you guys would like a very late mid-year wrap up, let me know. So in August, I ended up reading 13 books, which honestly is pretty good. Some of them were arcs that I got early access to, a lot of them were book of the month books, and then I also read some romance to kind of dwindle out of summer. It is September, it is fall in my mind. So the first book that I read in August was Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. This is the second book following Every Summer After. It's a companion romance series if you're not familiar with it. This book is following Fern and Will. They kind of have a meet cute of sorts that spirals into an adventure around the city. They made a pact to meet up with each other 1 year later, and of course, one of them doesn't show up. Fast forward into the future, Fern has never been able to get Will out of her mind, and just by chance, they happen to run into each other in a sort of forced proximity kind of situation. When I tell you that Meet Me at the Lake has gotten eaten up on social media, it has made me so apprehensive to read it. So I kind of was unintentionally putting it off, but I'm so glad that I finally did read it because I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I didn't think it was bad as all the girlies are making it out to be. I just know it's not going to be a romance that I constantly think about down the line. This romance is just the perfect one to read at the summertime. It's set on like a lakeside resort. We get to watch our characters work at the resort rather than it just being in the background, which is an aspect that I really loved. And something about Carly Fortune's writing just wants me to keep reading. It happened in Every Summer After and in this one, and I just absolutely ate it up. I think I binge listened to the entire thing in one day. I liked it. I thought it was fun. It's definitely a series that I would recommend getting into. The second book that I ended up reading in August was The Breakup Pact by Emma Lord. I got sent an early audiobook copy of this one, which I was very thankful for. This romance follows two best friends who haven't spoken in 10 years. They reunite by sorts because videos of them breaking up with their exes went viral, so they agree to fake date to kind of mend out the situation until it blows over. If you're looking for a romance to round up summer, this one might be the perfect one for you. If you're a trope girly, this one has all of the tropes. It's a slow burn friends to lovers set in a small town. There's a bunch of one-on-one dates that we get to go on with our two characters. And then of course there's a really good found family aspect. Since it is set in a small town, we get to know a lot of our two main characters' friends. Since we only had one POV, at times it felt overwritten, if that makes any sense. It was a slow burn, but the writing just felt so slow and clunky that it was just hard to get through. All in all, I ended up giving this one 3 stars. The sun keeps setting, so if the lighting is changing, I'm so sorry. The next book that I ended up reading I'm super excited about, and it's Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. This is my first Josh Malerman book, and what an introduction it was. This is a horror novel told from the perspective of a young girl who claims her family is being targeted by an entity known as Other Mommy. Terrifying. I listened to the audiobook of this one while reading it physically, and I really recommend the audiobook. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but the narration is told through the voice of a 6-year-old girl, so it truly sounds like the young girl in this book is narrating the story. That just added so much creepiness to my experience while reading this book. This book truly had everything that I look for in a horror novel. It had complex family dynamics, as well as an obscure cast of friends to our main family that we're following. This book had me looking around my house at every single creak while I was reading this at night. I ended up giving this a 4-star rating. I didn't give it a 5 just because in the middle it got a little bit repetitive. There was just this cycle of events happening that continued to happen. We kind of knew the direction this story was going, but the ending was wild. I had to reread the ending twice just to like wrap my brain around like, okay, this is actually what happened. I mean, it was a bit predictable, but it was also fun to see it play out, even though it's not the greatest time for our characters in here. The next book that I ended up reading was The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. It's not Christy. Kirsty. Kirsty. This is a romance book, but it also dabbles in a little bit of magical realism. We are following a recently deceased woman. There's a bug. I really should have killed that instead of swatting it. Why does this shit happen to me? I would have been deceased if that thing landed on me. Did you guys even see it? I doubt it. Anyways, we are following the perspective of a recently deceased woman. Yes, you heard that right. As she wakes up in the waiting room of the afterlife. Wild. As she wakes up in this waiting room, she meets the one, but he's sent back down to the real world. She strikes up a deal that sends her back down to the real world. If she can find that man within 10 days, she is allowed to stay living on Earth. And if not, back up to the afterlife she goes. This was a sweet romance. I feel like you can say that about any romance you read, but this truly was. It explores deeper meanings of love, family, friendship, everything that you necessarily don't appreciate as much as you should every single day. Although I do think the most important message in this book is what it means to find yourself while we still have time here on Earth. This book just really hit home, and it hurt. It was emotional, but I recommend it. This had me rethinking everything that I have done thus far in my life and everything that I should be taking advantage of. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. I definitely recommend it, and I can easily see it being turned into a movie. The next book that I ended up reading and giving 4 stars was One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. This is Ruth Ware's newest release, and it follows 5 couples that are trapped on a storm-swept island in the middle of nowhere, no civilization, as a killer stalks among them. If you're into reality TV, One Perfect Couple basically combines your favorite shows. It's like Survivor meets Love Island. It was just so entertaining, just like reality TV, to watch everything play out. You know how the new trend is to support women's wrongs when justified? I support these women's wrongs. All of their actions were justified. They are intelligent women, and I feel like if you're just into reading about some badass women, this is the book for you. This book is classified as a thriller, but I don't know if I would call it a thriller. There aren't really any shocking reveals or twists within this book. It's more of just a tense story where you don't know what's going to happen next. If you can get your hands on the audio, I definitely recommend reading it through that format. I think if I read this book physically, my rating would be lower just because it's such a beefy book. The next book that I finished was actually an ARC that I was sent by Macmillan Audio, and it is The Night Guest by Hildor. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I literally just scoured the internet trying to learn how to pronounce this last name, and I'm so sorry, but I am not going to be able to. And was reading a book about sleepwalking the best decision before going to sleep? In hindsight, probably not, but that's what I did because I binge listened to this entire thing right before going to sleep. This is actually this author's first translated book from Icelandic into English. This book follows our female main character who is trying to understand what is wrong with her. She ends up going to multiple doctor's appointments and no one has any answers for her. So she ends up buying an Apple Watch and wearing it when she goes to sleep. She ends up finding out that each night she is sleepwalking up to 40,000 steps. 40,000 is insane. No one's believing her. Her friends are getting increasingly more worried about her. So within this short horror book, we are discovering what is actually going on at night. This book kept me guessing literally up until the very end. I was set on giving this book 5 stars for the first 98%, but then when I got to the last few pages of this book, I didn't like it. I really did not like how this book wrapped up. The ending just left me with so many more questions than answers. To this day, I don't know if I fully understand the ending, but the weird girl confusion that we got throughout this book was just perfect. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and I do have a fear of sleepwalking now. The next book that I read and gave 4 stars to was The Au Pair Affair by Tessa Bailey. This is book 2 following Fangirl Down in the Big Shot series. Tessa Bailey can either be hit or miss, and this series I think is overall going to be a hit for me. This book follows Tallulah and Burgess. Burgess is a single dad and he needs an au pair to take care of his daughter. This is where Tallulah comes into the picture. She's 26, she's broke, so why not move in with a stranger and take care of his daughter? This is a forced proximity roommate hockey romance, so if you're a sports romance girly, definitely pick this one up. There's also some sort of grumpy sunshine dynamic going on. He falls first. This is also an age gap. They have an age gap between them of 11 years, so I think that was refreshing to read about in a book that is so popular. The reason why I gave this 4 stars and not 5 stars was just something that I had in the back of my mind against Burgess this entire time. Throughout this entire book, we have Burgess pulling strings for Tallulah around around the city using his name as a hockey star just to get them into places to go on dates at. Throughout this entire book, he keeps on saying that Tallulah is the reason he gets up in the morning. Tallulah is the one that is bettering him as a man, and Tallulah is the one that is just morphing him into a better parent. And that just makes me so sad because he's stating time and time again that his 12-year-old daughter is not enough to get him up in the morning, and simply that just makes me want to cry. There was also a weird side plot of like kidnapping in here, which I really did not expect, but it's what we got, and I feel like it was just out of pocket and out of place. The third book in this series just got announced today, and this is the cover for it. I think it's something drama. Off the top of my mind, I can't remember what the title is, but it follows two characters from the au pair affair that we get to know. So I'm truly curious how Tessa is going to write kind of a snotty, entitled female main character. I just really hope it's not cringy. Next is another romance that I gave 4 stars, and it is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I am quite possibly the last person on earth to read this book. Mom reads a lot, read this book before me, so I give her all of the pats on the back for that. Do I even have to tell you guys what this is about? This is a small town romance set between Gus and what's her name? January. I love how I can remember Gus but not a month of the year. Probably because the only thing Gus and I have in common is a metaphobia and a bad gag reflex. Slay. I'm truly too funny for my own good. Am I obsessed with this book as much as the other girlies? No, but I will say overall it was a good romance. It was very cute, I will give it that, and it was very impactful. There were deeper conversations about grief and childhood trauma in here. Our main characters had a really fun banter between them, and it did have some spicy moments, but it was mild, so I didn't really mind them. If you know, you know, the letters that her dad ended up writing her, oh my god, I was bawling. That was so sad to read, but also very wholesome. One thing I will say is that if I had to take a shot every single time our main characters were unable to drive their cars or they broke down, I fear that I would be the drunk one and not Gus in January. We used to live here. This book is insane. It lived up to every single hyped up review and post that I have seen on social media. If you have not read this yet, I highly encourage you to do so. I ended up giving this a 4.5 out of 5 stars, but looking back, I probably should just give it a 5 because I enjoyed it that much. I don't really want to tell you guys what this is about because it's so much fun to go into this one blind, and honestly, I think you'll have a better reading experience if you do. I'll just pitch this as 2 home renovators let a group of strangers into their house, and from there, chaos ensues. I will never let anyone into my house ever again that I do not know. I really think this book has scarred me, and it genuinely scared me to read at night. As soon as the sun set, I was on to enjoying different activities because I was not about to let what's in this book into my house. You may be thinking I'm pitching this as just like a typical home invasion story, but it is so much more than that. If you can get your hands on a physical copy, I definitely recommend doing so. There are maps in here that you have to decode while reading. There's a mixed media element. There's Morse code that actually translates into something that goes along with this book. I listened to this as well as reading it physically, and the audiobook was absolutely insane. It had added sound effects, different narrators. It was just such a good production. My main takeaway from this, besides the strangers being let into my house, is that the next time I see ants, I will scream. Like the bug ants, not like my Aunt Kim. Like a line of ants crawling to get food, I will scream. Getting down to the final few books that I read this month, the next one was, of course, another romance because I have to follow up a scary book with a fluffy book. And this time it was This Summer Will Be Different by none other than Carly Fortune. This is the 3rd book in her Every Summer After series. The 4th book is actually coming out in 2025. Here is the cover for this one. Of course, I don't know the title off the top of my head, but the colors are beautiful. This year, I have really discovered that Carly Fortune's writing is for me. This book takes place on Prince Edward Island, which is a new destination that I wouldn't mind traveling to. Although the seafood and the oysters that are talked about in this book really puts me off because I'm not a seafood gal. The main perspective of this book is told in current day time, where Lucy is brought back to the island because of her best friend asking her to come and visit. Although there is some hesitancy there because she ended up getting with Felix, her best friend's brother, several summers ago. And may I say, behind her bestie back, because it didn't just happen that one summer. Since we get flashbacks to all of the summers throughout the years, this is such a heartfelt and deep book, watching our characters grow and flourish into the people that they are today. The chemistry between Lucy and Felix was insane. You know, the little moments that you love in romance books, like the longing glances and little touches? I ate that up within here. This relationship just truly felt so real. It was about two people trying to figure out themselves and how to better themselves for each other before diving into a relationship, and I really enjoyed that aspect. I gave this 5 stars. I will be thinking about this for the rest of the year and how much I want to visit Prince Edward Island. The next book that I read is called Haunt Sweet Home by Sarah Pinsker. I was kindly sent an early audio copy by Macmillan Audio. We're on the set of like a kitschy reality TV show where stage scares, so they're faking the paranormal in this book, kind of turn into something more real. When you fake scare people, the real ghosts come out to play. This was a novella and it was very much on the lighter side of the horror genre, so if you're looking for a cutesy little ghosty book to get into the spooky season without being truly terrified, this is the perfect one for you. While it's still being lighthearted and cute, it actually dives deeper into what it might feel to be unambitious and overlooked while you're still trying to find out who you really are and what you want to do with your life. I really enjoyed the hokey TV production of everything and how we got a behind the scenes look of this TV show that they're filming. Even though I gave this 3 stars, I really enjoyed the audiobook because it was a multicast narration. The last physical book that I read this month was a beefy 500-page book of the month book, and it is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. I ended up buddy reading this with my friend Nicole. If you're watching, I love you. Thank you so much for buddy reading this with me because I don't think I would have gotten through all 500 pages by myself. We are following many characters' perspectives within this book, but we're following 2 different timelines. The first timeline is from back in the day when one of our main family's sons go missing. His name is Bear, and to this day they don't know what truly happened to him. Or should I say, the public doesn't know what happened to him, because along the way they discover that more people know about what happened to Bear than they have let on over the years. Our current day perspective is set in the 1970s, so it's still set in like an old school summer camp vibe, where the sister to Bear, Barbara, ends up going missing. When Barbara goes missing, this shocks this tiny, small, blue-collar town because it's not every day that a son and a daughter from the same family go missing. Like I said, we follow multiple characters within this book, which I found to be a little bit confusing and overwhelming, but once I got a hang of all the characters and who's who, I physically made a character list. I didn't want to stop listening to this audiobook. The mystery started to slowly unravel itself, and the last like 20% of this book really picked up in speed. This is a very character-driven story, so if that's not your favorite thing, this definitely isn't going to be the book for you. I kind of have an unpopular opinion because a lot of my friends and people that I follow have been giving this 5 stars, and I ended up giving it a 3.5. I ended up liking 2 point of views from this the most. We were following Tracy, one of the kids that attended the summer school when Barbara went missing, and Judy, who was a female investigator on this case, trying to figure out what happened to Barbara and Bear all those years ago. The flashbacks drug for me, but the last 20% I ended up really liking. I wouldn't say it's all wrapped up in a bow, but it ends in a satisfying way, I guess you can say. After reading this book, you will get to understand what this cover truly means. You might look at this and think, The God of the Woods, why is there this random pink drip down the middle and on the spine? After reading this, it reflects back to the story perfectly, and I am obsessed with this cover. It honestly might be one of my favorite covers of the year so far. Then the last little book that I ended up reading on the very last day of August was The Tea Dragon Society by Kay O'Neill. Why did no one tell me that I was missing out on the cutest tea dragons on earth? This is a graphic novel that follows a blacksmith apprentice and the people she meets along the way in the world of tea dragons. This is a 72-page book, so you really can't go wrong reading it. I always steered away from it because I just wasn't so sure about the cozy fantasy dragon aspect, and oh my god, I am obsessed. I want a tea dragon. I would love one as a stuffed animal, and I just think they are the cutest things. I have the other 2 graphic novels in this series on hold from my library, so I really hope they come in soon because I need to read everything that this world has to offer. I ended up giving this 4 stars. It reminded me why I love graphic novels and why I need to pick up more of them. Just like that, we have made it to the end of my August wrap up. My battery just started blinking, so what perfect time to end this video. Thank you guys so much for watching me make my little return to booktube. I am really motivated to start making more videos now, so hopefully that is something that you will see coming out here within the next few weeks on this channel. If you liked what you saw and haven't done so already, be sure to like this video and subscribe down below. All the YouTube stuff that you guys know how to do. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your reading year is going great so far, and I will see you next time. Bye!